The sun is there right now. You do not need to check. You have never needed to check. In the entire history of your life, in the entire history of every human life that has ever been lived on this planet, the sun has been there, rising, setting, warming, driving every weather system, every ocean current, every biological process that has ever occurred on Earth. The most reliable thing in human experience. The object that has appeared in the sky every single day for 4.5 billion years without a single exception. Now imagine it is gone. Not dimming, not exploding, not gradually fading over billions of years the way it actually will. Gone, removed, vanished from existence at this exact moment as you read this, without warning, without process, without any physical mechanism that actually exists in nature. Simply absent, the way a light goes out when you flip a switch. What happens next is not what you expect. Not immediately, not for the first 8 minutes. For 8 minutes and 20 seconds after the sun disappears, nothing changes. The sky looks exactly the same. The temperature is exactly the same. Every instrument on Earth reads normal. Every person on the planet goes about their day unaware that the star their world depends on no longer exists. Because the light that is currently illuminating your life left the sun 8 minutes and 20 seconds ago. You are not seeing the sun, you are seeing its past. And for 8 minutes and 20 seconds, you are living in a universe where the sun is already gone and you do not know it yet. Let's follow the timeline precisely, because the sequence of what happens and when is where the true horror of this scenario lives. 8 minutes and 20 seconds after the sun disappears, the light stops arriving. Not gradually, all at once. The sun does not set, it does not fade. From the perspective of the day side of Earth, the sky simply goes from full daylight to complete darkness in the time it takes light to cross the last kilometer between the sun's former position and your eyes. One moment, ordinary afternoon. The next, the stars of deep space visible in every direction. The sky, a black field of points of light. The familiar blue atmosphere replaced by the cold clarity of space-facing darkness. It is not night. Night is the shadow of a rotating planet. This is something different. The absence of a source. The sky showing you what has always been behind the blue. The universe that was always there but hidden by 8 minutes of traveling light. On the night side of Earth, nothing changes immediately. The moon is no longer lit. It reflects sunlight, and the sunlight is gone. But for a few seconds, the residual glow of lunar surface radiation makes no noticeable difference. The stars continue their normal patterns. Nothing announces what has happened. Within minutes, the moon goes dark. Within hours, the planets, which also shine by reflected sunlight, begin to fade and disappear from the sky. The solar system, without its star, goes visually dark, one reflective surface at a time. 8 minutes and 20 seconds. That is also, to a reasonable approximation, when Earth's orbit changes. Gravity, like light, travels at the speed of light. This is a consequence of general relativity. Gravitational influences do not propagate instantaneously, but at the speed of light. The gravitational field of the sun does not simply vanish the moment the sun does. It propagates outward at the speed of light, and Earth does not feel the absence of that gravitational field until the information of the sun's disappearance reaches it. For those 8 minutes and 20 seconds, Earth continues orbiting a gravitational field that no longer has a source. It moves along its normal orbital path, held in its ellipse by a gravitational influence that is, in the most literal sense, a ghost, the residual field of an object that no longer exists, still propagating outward at the speed of light, still curving space in the region between where the sun was and where Earth is. At 8 minutes and 20 seconds, the gravitational field arrives at Earth simultaneously with the last light. Both signals travel at the same speed. Both carry the same message. The sun is gone, and Earth, released from its orbital constraint, stops following a curved path around a center that no longer exists. It travels in a straight line, not dramatically, not suddenly.
in the smooth, continuous way that physics dictates, the planet continuing in the direction it was moving at the moment the gravitational field departed, now following a tangent to its former orbit rather than curving back around a source of gravity. Earth becomes a rogue planet, moving at approximately 30 kilometers per second, its orbital velocity, in whatever direction it happened to be heading at the moment of departure, outward into the solar system and eventually into interstellar space. Now, let's talk about what that means for the people on it. In the first hours, the temperature changes are not yet catastrophic. Earth's atmosphere is an enormous thermal reservoir. It stores heat. The oceans store far more, the land less so, but still significant. The immediate effect of losing sunlight is the beginning of a long, slow, permanent decline toward temperatures that human civilization was not built for.
The first day without the sun, average global temperatures drop by a few degrees. Uncomfortable, unusual, worrying to scientists who immediately understand what has happened the moment the sun vanishes and the instruments begin recording what they record. The first week, temperatures drop further. The rate of decline is uneven. The poles, already cold, change less dramatically in the short term. The tropics, used to intense solar input, cool faster relative to their baseline. Within 2 weeks, the average global surface temperature is below freezing. Within a year, the average surface temperature is approximately -73 degrees Celsius. Within decades, it approaches -240 degrees, the temperature of deep space, minus the residual geothermal heat that Earth's interior continues to generate. The oceans freeze. Not immediately. The thermal mass of the oceans is enormous, and the surface freezes first, creating an insulating layer of ice that slows the freezing of the deep water beneath. The deep ocean may remain liquid for hundreds of thousands of years, heated by the geothermal flux from Earth's interior. But the surface, the part of the ocean that interacts with the atmosphere, that drives weather, that supports the ecosystems that support everything else, freezes within years. Here is the timeline for human civilization. The first hours are not physically dangerous, they are psychologically shattering. Every person on Earth who is awake at the moment the sun vanishes sees it happen. The instantaneous transition from daylight to darkness on the day side, the simultaneous disappearance of the sun from the sky. Every instrument confirms it within seconds. Every government, every military, every scientific institution on Earth immediately receives the same signal. The sun is gone. There is no historical framework for this, no emergency protocol, no international treaty governing the response to the absence of the star the planet orbits. Nothing in the history of human civilization has prepared any institution for the management of a species whose home star has simply ceased to exist. Panic of a specific civilizational kind. Not the panic of an earthquake or a hurricane. Those are bad and local and eventually end. The recognition spreading within minutes through every connected person on Earth that this does not end, that there is no recovery plan, that every system civilization depends on, agriculture, energy, water, supply chains, ultimately depends on sunlight, and the sunlight is gone. The first day is chaos. The first week is the beginning of triage. Most plants begin dying within days. Photosynthesis requires light. Without it, the process stops. The energy input that drives the base of virtually every food chain on Earth, from ocean phytoplankton to rainforest canopy, stops within days of losing sunlight. The surface ocean, freezing, becomes inhospitable to the photosynthetic organisms that have sustained it for billions of years. On land, plants stop producing food within days. They begin dying within weeks. The agricultural systems that feed 8 billion people require sunlight.
not just for growth, but for the entire thermal environment that makes growth possible. Crops die, fields freeze. The global food system, which operates with approximately 90 days of reserve food supply at any given time, begins its countdown. 90 days of food for 8 billion people, with no prospect of renewal. There are alternatives. Mushrooms can grow without sunlight, feeding on dead organic material. Certain chemosynthetic organisms, bacteria that derive energy from chemical reactions rather than sunlight, survive and even thrive in deep ocean environments, around hydrothermal vents, in rock formations kilometers underground. Life, in its most minimal and robust forms, continues. Human civilization, in any recognizable form, does not. But here is where the physics offers a narrow, strange window of survival. The geothermal heat of Earth's interior does not depend on the sun. Earth generates its own heat from the radioactive decay of elements like uranium, thorium, and potassium in the mantle and core, from the residual heat of planetary formation, from the friction generated by tidal interactions with the moon. This heat flows outward continuously, emerging through volcanic regions, hydrothermal vents, and the general background heat flux of the crust. It is not enough to warm a planet-wide civilization. It is enough, in specific locations, to maintain liquid water and temperatures that life can tolerate. Iceland, with its exceptional geothermal activity, sits above one of the most productive geothermal regions on Earth. Deep beneath Yellowstone, beneath the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, beneath Iceland, beneath dozens of volcanic hotspots globally, there is heat. Not enough to stop the surface from freezing, enough in carefully engineered underground environments to maintain a temperature above freezing indefinitely.
A civilization compressed into geothermally heated underground habitats, growing food in artificially lit environments powered by geothermal electricity, drawing heat from the planet's own interior rather than from a star that no longer exists. A few million people, at most, in the most geothermally favorable locations, living underground on a frozen, dark, drifting planet. Not what we built, not what 8 billion people require, but something. The persistence of a species that descended from organisms that survived mass extinctions and ice ages and asteroid impacts and the worst the solar system offered. Life finds a way is not a platitude in this context. It is a physical observation. Life has survived every catastrophe in 4 billion years of Earth history. Whether it survived a civilization compressed into geothermally heated underground habitats, growing food in artificially lit environments powered by geothermal electricity, drawing heat from the planet's own interior rather than from a star that no longer exists. A few million people, at most, in the most geothermally favorable locations, living underground on a frozen, dark, drifting planet. Not what we built, not what 8 billion people require, but something. The persistence of a species that descended from organisms that survived mass extinctions and ice ages and asteroid impacts and the worst the solar system offered. Life finds a way is not a platitude in this context. It is a physical observation. Life has survived every catastrophe in 4 billion years of Earth history. Whether it survives this one depends on whether the species with the intelligence to build underground geothermal habitats has the time and the cooperation to build them before the surface becomes uninhabitable. Approximately 1 year, that is the window. The moon, meanwhile, does not immediately abandon Earth. The moon orbits Earth, not the sun. Earth's gravity holds the moon regardless of whether the sun exists. In the immediate aftermath of solar disappearance, the moon continues its normal orbit, circling a dark, freezing planet, no longer lit by reflected sunlight, invisible against the dark sky.
The tidal forces between Earth and Moon continue. The same gradual recession that has been moving the Moon outward for 4 billion years continues at the same rate. Nothing about the Earth-Moon relationship changes when the Sun disappears. But over millions of years, if Earth has become a rogue planet drifting through interstellar space, the gravitational interactions that slowly affect the Moon's orbit change character. Without the Sun's gravitational influence on the Earth-Moon system, the dynamics simplify. The Moon continues to orbit. The orbit slowly changes. Eventually, over timescales of hundreds of millions of years, Earth might capture the Moon into a stable frozen orbit, or the Moon might drift away entirely. The calculations are complex, and the outcome depends on details of the trajectory through interstellar space. But the Moon is there, orbiting a dead world, in the dark, for much longer than anything alive on the surface. Here is the question that sits underneath the entire scenario. If we knew it was coming, if we had a year of warning, a decade, a century, could we survive? Not restore civilization, not maintain what we have. Survive. Some of us. Enough of us. The honest answer from physics and engineering is, possibly. Geothermal energy is real and scalable in certain locations. Artificial lighting for food production, LED grow lights powered by geothermal or nuclear electricity is a real technology that already exists. Underground habitats are engineering challenges, not physical impossibilities. The thermal mass of the deep ocean means that liquid water exists underground and in the deep sea for thousands of years after the surface freezes. The problem is not physics. The problem is coordination, resource allocation, and time. Building the infrastructure to support even a small remnant human population in a post-solar world requires global cooperation at a scale that has never been achieved for any purpose. It requires prioritizing survival over every other human activity. It requires decades of preparation for an event that has never occurred in human history and for which no civilization has ever prepared. Whether we could do it is a question about human nature as much as physics. There is a specific thought that this scenario produces which no other cosmic disaster quite generates. A gamma-ray burst, an asteroid impact, a supervolcano. These are events. They happen. They cause damage. They end, and what remains either recovers or does not. The disappearance of the Sun does not end. It is a permanent condition. Not a disaster to survive, but a new state of existence. A planet without a star. A civilization, if it persists at all, adapted not to recovery, but to a fundamentally different relationship with energy and heat and light. The people who survived, if anyone survived, would be living on a world that no longer receives energy from outside. A closed system, slowly cooling, drawing on its own internal heat in the dark between the stars. They would never see the Sun again. Not them, not their children, not their children's children for 1,000 generations. The star that made them, that made every atom of carbon and oxygen and nitrogen in their bodies, in the sense that stellar nucleosynthesis in previous generations of stars produced those elements, would simply be absent from their sky. They would have to learn to live without the thing that everything they descended from had always lived with. The Sun is approximately 150 million kilometers from Earth. Light crosses that distance in 8 minutes and 20 seconds. It has been doing this for 4.5 billion years, before the first cell divided, before the first fish developed eyes, before the first organism climbed from the ocean onto land and felt warmth on surfaces that had never felt warmth before. Before the first human looked up at the sky and understood, in whatever pre-linguistic way, that the light and the heat came from the same place. The Sun has never not been there. In 4.5 billion years of Earth's existence, there has not been a single second when the sun was absent. The reliability of that presence is so total, so absolute, so built into the physical and biological and physiological foundation of every living thing on this planet that we do not experience it as a gift or a coincidence or a fragile arrangement that depends on nothing going wrong. We experience it as the air we breathe, as the ground beneath us, as the most basic given of existence. It is not a given. It is a star, a specific star, at a specific distance, in a specific orbit, fusing hydrogen at a specific rate, producing light and heat at a specific output that has remained stable enough for long enough to allow everything we are to come into existence. And in 8 minutes and 20 seconds, the time it takes light to cross 150 million kilometers, you would know if it was gone. 8 minutes. That is how long you have between the disappearance of the thing that makes your existence possible and the moment the darkness reaches you.